What's up, demons and demonettes? Tis I, Atraxi, Demon Queen. And today we're talking, that's right, Chains of Eternity. That's right. Oh, we've got the new season. Oh, we're sitting on Pioneer. But before we get into it, as always, toss a like and subscribe down below. Now, I'm going to add a new playlist similar to Waves for Chains. So that way we can kind of keep everything together. And this is going to be the intro video for Change. And some prep work and things you can get ready to do ahead of time. So one of the biggest things you can do to get ready ahead of a time is to focus on certain heroes. So let's talk about the heroes that we have, because we don't have Lorson, we don't have the twins, so we didn't actually get to test them as of yet. Unlike last time where we had Dun, Nara, and Sinbad, and we could kind of gauge how they were going to be right off the bat. So as we can talk about are Hugin and Bonnie, and some of the other push heroes, so people you may want to focus on building. Now, Bonnie and Hugin are going to play a big part in the early part of the season. Now, where I was down on Hugin because he didn't really work well in the end game for waves, other than perhaps a Ravaged Realm and pushing in some stages. He's going to come up big here. So, what kind of investment do you need in Hugin? Probably M+++10, and there is a reason we need +10. So let's go and talk about what we need first, and then we'll talk about why we need it, and look at some things. So, at +10, grants control immunity to allies protected by enhanced cog shield while it's active. Okay, that's the shield that he puts out periodically on the weakest hero. So if we go into Dream Realm and we look at our record, our highest score is using Hugin. That's right, Hugin with Tayleen, the queen of a pre-endless Dream Realm. She just dominated during waves. If you didn't run Tayleen, you weren't getting a high score. If you're not running these two together on the stun bosses, you're not getting a high score. So we'll talk about more with Beetle, because Beetle I think is the better example, because Beetle is finished. We do kind of like have a set position on a Beetle. I did run out of attempts, but if we go here, we can see where we did finish pretty well on a Beetle. We probably could have got higher. We ran out of attempts testing. So we'll go back into it, and we're going to talk about why. Because Beetle does a stun and a knockup. What Hugin does is his shield makes a Tayleen immune to that stun periodically. So you're going to have it at times where they line up, and it's going to minimize Tayleen's downtime that she is not ulting on the boss. So if we want to look at some numbers and compare, let's take our Tayleen damage with Hugin on Beetle. She does 817, and then we can go down here to where we ran with Smokey, and she did far less damage. Here, if we have another similar squad here, where she was able to do a bit more damage, even with Smokey here in this squad, she did far less damage. So we want to run her with Hugin over Smokey. You'll notice that Sonya already showing up in Dream Realm. You should have her built up. She's showing up here. Rainer making a comeback, and Bonnie going to be slipping into some of the metas here and there, just depending on what boss and kind of what utility we need to compensate for that boss. So like on an Orson, we need Elsa over Bonnie because we need the stun. On Thalassa, who was the only other boss we had, we needed the extra support from a Coco, so we ran with Odie, just because Odie does a lot of damage on this boss. Now, if you're curious as to what bosses we're going to get, we're going to get the Plague Creeper. He's coming back, so we don't have really a meta for him. That's obviously going to change from the Primal Lord, so whatever we had for Primal Lord gets tossed out the window. Same thing for Shellbrute. We have Stomper coming back, so we can probably recycle the meta there. Although I speculate Bonnie might be big here. We have Alone Gaze coming back. Lucia, new boss, no information on Thalassa, obviously first time as a Dream Realm boss and not Ravage Realm, and then we get back a Crystal Beetle. So we lose Kuroker, Skyclops, Necro Dragon, and Alpha Bear. I'm not sad to see a Necro Dragon go. He is one of my least favorite. I wish we had lost Stomper, but I guess they gotta keep one boss we gotta hate on. That's RNG super heavy in the mix, because they love their RNG bosses. I would have rather they had kept Skyclops. Anyway, that's kind of what we're going to look at for there. One thing to mention is on any of the heroes that you're going to be using on content. Boss killers being bigger and damage dealers for your control teams are going to benefit more from being pushed to plus 20 in the coming season and going forward.
What a beautiful
Why is that?
day.
It's because EX weapons from 16 to 20 are getting buffed. They're getting a 0.5%, right? So normally on the regular side, this is 0.5%. On this side, it is a full 1%. And then it goes back down to the 0.5% from 21 to 25. So anybody that you already have at 20 is essentially going to get pushed up to the level that was previously 25, and making it imperative that key heroes are pushed to plus 20. This is going to be big for your push teams. This is going to be big for your PvP teams. This is going to be big for your Dream Realm teams, right? So anybody that's a key hero needs to be plus 20. Otherwise, they're going to seriously lose some power. Talking about push, let's look at the push teams. Alright, so we can go into the record here. And you can see we're using a control. Now that we have the talent stages and the regular stages, no more multi-stages. Those are gone. They said they are not coming back, thankfully. So the stages are back to 1 and done and move on. Alright, so we're going to talk about the core of the control team. Alright, we're going to put it into 3 sections. So we're going to section it out. Alright, so we're going to have our core, and that's going to be Aaron and Olmus. This is non-negotiable. You will always be running these on your control team. The wilder spot that is the third hero is a flex spot, we will say. You can run Tassie instead. And in some cases, you may need to run your Floribel, right? So that's primarily going to be what's going in there. Someone else that may slot into this spot is going to be Lorson. We didn't get him to test. We did get him in one story mission where he did do a significant amount of damage and healing, and he does offer some control. So he may be a very viable push character. He's someone we're going to keep an eye on early in the season. We're going to pull for and test, and I'll let you know for sure. I think he's going to be a big hero in the PvP environment, at least when it comes to push. More so than the twins. My guess is that the twins are going to lean more in towards the Dream Realm side of things and more toward the PvP side of things. But we need to focus on push. So Lorson's another one that could easily fit in here. Alright, so we got that covered. Now, the other spots are, again, flex. You're going to want to run either Carolina or Bonnie. In some cases, both. In other cases, you're going to drop one, and you're going to run Temesia. Now, this is one of my more favorite teams that I like to run for control. I like this team a lot. However, if you need more damage, you're going to run Carolina. If you need a damage maybe and control, you're probably going to run maybe something like this with a Temesia. But again, I typically got pretty far early on just running this, right? And then sometimes you're going to need to run your Mauler squads. So you're going to need something like this is going to pop in every once in a while. Maybe with a Hugin and then a Rowan. We don't get the talent tile that way. If we want to get the talent tile, then maybe we run like a Coco over Hugin or a Coco over your Rowan. Those are some other push teams you can run. You may even need to drop him out or drop him out. And then maybe do him, and then we would run maybe like a Harak. Harak's gonna be used. You're gonna use light bearer teams. There's some light bearer teams out there. Some of them look like this.
I'm ready by the title of the swordsman. Time to tear him apart.
And then Odie, wherever Odie is. Odie's big. Odie's are really good in stages, especially early on. If you can get his charm set, he's just poison bar will fill up the entire health bar, and they won't even need to take max damage or any damage at all. They'll just get straight up poisoned. I've seen it happen to Almost on Almost stages where Almost doesn't even get to move to the back. He just gets straight up poisoned to the max of his bar and just dies. Odie's just amazing this season. His charm set, he deals 8%. It's 8% chunk damage. He's just so good this season. But that's kind of it for your push teams. Right now, let's talk about artifacts. Early on, you're probably going to be running a Star Shard spell, maybe Confining spell. As for the seasonal, right, these are the only 4 that we currently have. This is Sanctum spell. It's just a healing one. It's very similar to your Awakening spell. I don't even touch this thing. I never run it. These 3 are very intriguing. You get this one through the story early on, and this is Snowman spell. If basically what it's going to do is going to create a dummy that drops out there and taunts all of the enemies. So it's nice. It fills in those gaps in control and works well with your control teams. You have Harmonic spell. This one's going to be used primarily for a bossing as well as Star Shard. This one does attack, haste, and then life drain. It works very much like Evocation spell did back in Song, where it's going to give an attack and defense buff. We'll go more into it when we talk about artifacts. And then you have Overcharge, which works similar to Cascade. You're probably going to interchange between these 2 a lot. Maybe using sometimes this one on your control teams when you need to. But that's kind of it for your control teams. So since we talked about artifacts, let's talk about artifacts. So you're primarily going to get your artifacts through the seasonal track, right? You're going to get them through here. You're going to get one very early on because you get them at 50, 450, and 800, then 1050, 13. So my guess is that the weekly limit is going to be initially 1,000. So we'll get these 3 initially, and then essentially we're going to be getting a new artifact every week. That's what it looks like, or every couple weeks after that, right? Because you have them at 1050, then 1300, then 1550, 1800, 2050, 23. So you get most of them through the tract up here. You don't get too many through the story. We get the Snowman one early on. I don't know when we get the last artifact. I don't know if that's going to be through story. Probably story towards the end. And then perhaps, or through rep. Should we get rep towards the end? So, let's go a little bit more into detail and talk about these artifacts. Overcharge spell blesses the rearmost ally when a battle starts, recovering 2% of max HP and 30 energy. And then after 10 seconds, when they cast their first ult, they get it for another 10 seconds, and they become unaffected during that time. Now, if your manual team is going to come back, it's only going to be because of this artifact. Here, it doesn't work the same way Cascade did, so it doesn't give the energy boost to the whole team. So I don't expect that it's going to come back at all. It works a little bit more like our Resonator spell. Then you have Harmonic Spell, which I think is going to be the go-to spell early on for Dream Realm and stage pushing. Again, it does attack, haste, life drain, and then blesses all allies when a battle starts, and every 10 seconds thereafter, they get an 8% increase to attack, 25 defense for 5 seconds, and then it also is going to give them 50 haste if they're above 50 HP, and 20 light drain if they're below 20 HP, right? And then each level just increases the stats, right? And then Snowman, again, I just said it drops the Snowman, lasting 5 seconds. It taunts the enemy. It gets certain health and defense based on team attack. And this one, it's just a healing one. It just puts a healing bubble on the ground, just like a pool. They stand in the pool. They get healed. If they're out of it, they're boned. Not too great. We got a lot of other spells in here. They're not unlocked yet, so I'm not really too worried about them. Some are really going to be really good for PvP, like this Soulbound one. It links the frontmost and backmost heroes, so the frontmost hero gets healed by the backmost hero's damage, and the backmost hero gains 20% of the frontmost hero's energy regen, right? So they get energy, they get 20% of the frontmost hero's energy, so the idea is you put it on a tank, the tank goes up front, he takes a lot of hit, he builds up energy, he gives some of that energy to the back hero, the back hero is doing a ton of damage, so you pair it up with someone like Freyasto and Dio, and bam, you got a really nasty combo, or like a Dun and Dio, and again, you've got a really nasty combo. We have this one here, which is the Blade Summon spell. It does true damage based on team attack. So I expect this one could pop into Dream Realm at some point, right? It increases attack and attack speed. And it does cumulative, but it's cumulative range damage. So that one's kind of iffy, there. It could be more of like a pre-endless one, but we'll see, because true damage is good for endless dream realm. And then we have the last one here, which is the Ice Guard. That gives a big shield to your frontmost hero, and makes it so they debuff the enemies around them. You have Storm Strike. That's kind of eh. We have a Frostfall. This one's a little weird. It's just based on the number of alts. Surging Spell seems interesting. 3 seconds to battle. It creates a beam of light. It's the beam of light. It does team attack damage and shields your heroes in the beam, right? So like it hits the enemies, does a big chunk damage to them, and then shields your heroes. Could be interesting for PvP content or bossing. Alright. So I did mention talents and running talents. And so your big two for stage pushing early on are going to be a Lightbearer and your Wilder factions. Lightbearer is kind of interesting. Oh, we get Hogan. So this is why you see, if you see like Lightbearer teams, they're might not be running tanks in push. It's because you get Hogan. When battle starts, Hogan descends from the sky and lands in the front of the frontmost enemy, dealing damage 190% of his attack to enemies within 2 tiles and stunning them for 2 seconds. Hogan inherits 10% of team attack, 100% of team HP, along with extra stat boosts equal to 30% of the prime carrier's attack and 80% of their base max HP. He is a beast, right? He drops down, he's a beast. You get a free hero, and he's pretty good. He's pretty sturdy, pretty strong, so you're going to see your Lightbearer teams just not run a tank, or even if they do run a tank, it's going to be Luca, and then you're going to have Hogan drop down, and it's going to be bad times for your opponents in PvE. Wilder has the prime carrier enters concealed state when the battle starts. While concealed, the prime carrier becomes invincible and deals 19% increased damage. So because they increase damage for non-alt skills, you're going to see this on Carolina a lot, potentially Bonnie a lot, and your Tassie is also a good option, just because she becomes invincible, right? Immune to all types of damage and control effects, and becomes untargetable, right? So that really helps her out. You may also use it on your Aaron, depending on the situation. Alright, Now we have the Mauler. Mauler's going to be primarily more on your PvP side of things, right? It's 4 seconds into a battle, allows the Prime Carrier to mark the enemy, and then they go after them. It works very similar to Lenya's ability. Right, Graveborn. Again, this one has PvP implications. When a battle starts, it seizes the soul of the rearmost hero of the Prime Carrier, instantly causing the enemy to lose a 45% HP, very much like the wetted attack from Arcana Labs, right? They take that big chunk damage and then they kind of recover it slowly over time. So the advantage is you want to hit somebody. So you put like a Bonnie on here. Bonnie's gonna automatically target that rearmost hero. So you burn down that rearmost hero that's at 55% health. You can get them quickly into things like execute range. You could take them out pretty easily. So you take them out and it really puts your opponent's team at a disadvantage. You could see how this is going to be big for PvP teams. So a Graveborn may have a big boost there, especially with new heroes like Valka coming out that may give them a boost in PvP that they could really use. So whereas Mauler was the go-to kind of like team for PvP last season, your Graveborn could be go-to for this season, especially with that wooded attack, because if you go up against teams, a lot of teams put their best hero in their rearmost slot, just because of things like Insight or Resonator in the past and things like that. So we'll have to kind of like see how that all shakes out. That definitely seems interesting, and I'm kind of looking forward to having like a meta change that way. And then you have the Celestial Hypogeans, which one's kind of I don't really care for this one, but basically the Prime Carrier gets energy restored after their allies ult 4 times. They get the divine power and they get increased attack and increases their HP, right? So this could be interesting for somebody that's a big hitter like a Dio or like a Talene or maybe even a Harak, right? So they get all the ults, they get the 10% increased attack. Although Harak eating people is more advantageous than that buff. So I expect to see a lot of Graveborn teams, especially with how strong a Bonnie is for PvP. And yeah. So that's kind of like it for the PvP side for teams. Just additional game modes we can mention are a Legend Trial is back. It's how you're going to get your pieces for your artifacts. To upgrade those. Very similar to last season. I don't know how many floors we're going to have. Maybe we'll have more floors because we have more artifacts that we need to level up this time around. There's Trials is back. There is a big change, right? There's only one thing. It's just Dawnrise. So we click into it and we have two things. Dawnrise and Nightmare, right? So what you do here is you run your Nightmare and it boosts your rewards, right? So you get more rewards. So you do your Nightmare, you boost your rewards, then you push up your Dawnrise, and then you sweep. One thing to mention is, just like the Mythic track currently is, you only get your charms from your sweeps. Here we get diamonds from our first clear, and then eventually it looks like we're going to get some dust. It is worth mentioning that we can once again craft charms right off the bat. Again, they are costly, so you probably need to focus your big heroes early on. Maybe like an Odie, Talene, Bonnie, all good, all solid choices, depending on how the charm sets go. Charm sets are in flux. They just changed like Harak's charm set, as his wasn't very good. So it is possible that these could change, so it's not really worth covering heroes just for their charm sets. The only one I really want to mention is Odie's, because again, Odie is going to be a very, very strong. Just because if you look at this, it deals, deal extra damage every 3 a normal attack, hit equal to 8% of the target's HP, up to 200% of hit 10% of his attack, right? So, oh, it's 10%, it's 8% of the caster's HP, right? So he's doing a big chunk damage here, right? So he's doing a lot of damage. It's free damage. So he's going to be big, I think, early on, at least for stage pushing. I'm not too sold on him being a big in Dream Realm. I don't think that's enough to push him past Taylene. As we saw, we did see he was really good on Thalassa, but again, we didn't really get to test too much, so we'll see. He may be meta on a few bosses, and then he's paired with Taylene, and then Taylene's meta on like 6 out of 8 of the bosses. Again, we'll have to wait and see to see how things kind of like shake out with the boss comps. Equipment's back. Same deal here. For leveling, again, we're going to use the same strategy, right? We're going to go up to the meta slot. I'm going to focus on getting to these 10 slots, right? Just because if we go into the season quest, right? The season quest is at the 10 numbers, right? Those 360, 370, 380, yada, yada, yada. And getting this is big because, again, this is how we're going to get most of the artifacts. So, completing this quest is going to be big. So, that's kind of like my strategies, right? I go with the meta slot, I go with the second meta slot. So, we'll go this one at 360 next, and then even level these ones up. So, yeah, I think we touched on everything. Kind of like PvE related. There's some changes to Paragon levels. They got reverted. Yes. The only thing worth mentioning is one, we've got these 2 new stats, Inspiration and Intimidation. I'd have to go onto my alone to probably get the description. Right, additional increases inspiration in the rivalry stat mode. Every point of inspiration increases all allies' healing effects, shield value, energy, gains buff effects by 1% is offset by. So they decreased it. Now this is what Paragon 1 looks like. I'm hoping they revert this change as well. And it's that your Celestials and Hypogeans start out with the Paragon stats unlocked, right? So you essentially get Paragon 1 level stats when unlocking S+ on your Celestial Hypogeans. However, you end up in the same spot as Paragon 4. So I'm hoping that that changes, because then that means you're looking at a less of a gap in between your Paragon levels for your Celestial Hypogeans, which really diminishes the value of Paragon 4 compared to, say, Paragon 3. So Paragon 3 is like kind of gonna become the new, I think, sweet spot of where you really need to get your heroes to get your best value, at least out of your Celestial Hypogeans. You can see the effect doesn't affect our regular S+ heroes, right? They don't have the hero. The rivalry stats unlocked. And again, they go to 15, 6, 4, right? So essentially, S+ is the new Paragon 1 for your Celestial Hypogeans, and then you get 11.5 for the energy stats, 4.5 for the other stats. That's another huge change to mention when it comes to Celestial Hypogeans. Not a fan. I hope that's a change that gets reverted. They did revert enough. They did revert the Paragon stat changes, thankfully. Even as someone who said that Paragon stats needed a buff, they went too far. They made it too strong. I agree the game should pay to win, but if you're at P3, you should be able to compete with P4. P2, compete with P3. So as long as you're in one Paragon level, I think you should be able to compete. The gap needs to be between those +2 Paragon levels or more. So why I said, like, they need to have a boost. They don't need to have that much big of a boost. They could have cut the boost in half. Maybe like a 25% or 15 or 20% increase. So your Paragon stats that are still there would have been fine, and the introduction of the new stats is, well, we'll see how that pans out. yeah, so that's just something to note, is that your Paragon heroes, so that's mainly going to affect your support heroes. That's another big change that is coming, is this intimidation and inspiration. So you want to have as much inspiration on your team as possible, and as much intimidation, because your intimidation cancels out their inspiration, and their inspiration cancels out your intimidation, right? So they kind of cancel each other. But if you have more inspiration on your team is going to get the full buff. And if you have the intimidation, you're going to reduce your other opponent's buff by more, right? Essentially, you're putting them into the red. Alright, so that's it for stats. So Paragon stats going to be a little bit better. And the inspiration affects your healing. So say like your Smokies of the world, right? That's who it's going to benefit the most, right? Because he's a healer, a buffer. So he only benefits from the damage reduction and the energy reduction stats. He doesn't benefit from energy on hit. He doesn't benefit from a damage boost. So those stats are kind of meaningless for our support heroes. They don't really help them out. So there's little incentive to Paragon up your support heroes, unless you're somebody that's like min-maxing everything and you want to get that optimal HP, attack, and those extra stats just to increase their survivability. But if you run someone like a Damien, there's a little incentive other than, hey, I have a gazillion pulls. It's easy. It was easy to pull him to Paragon 4, so I pulled him to Paragon 4. But there's a little incentive to push him to Paragon 4 in the first place with the 2 new stats. There's a little bit more incentive to push your support heroes, or you're going to get rewarded for pushing your support heroes in their Paragon levels. As for PvP, again, Arena, not changing much. Supreme Arena, it's back. We get to climb the ladder again. You want to run your control team, and then you want to run TNT. By TNT, I mean the T-Lean and a Tassie duo. These are going to be your 2 strongest duos, which are, control comp. I just ran Aaron, Almus, Arden, Alsa, and Haywin. Very, very strong control team there. Also has the advantage, obviously, for PvP. And then we just ran the standard TNT team, right? We put together a hodgepodge team, but we only need to win 2 matches. These 2 teams are very strong against the bots because they offer versus damage and CC, right? This team CC's heavy and offers a lot of damage. You could sub in your Bonnie for Lily May there, but we ran Bonnie on the other squad. We probably could have put something better together for this squad. We had the scraps, we had the leftovers. We probably could have done something like a isolation team or a heavy celestial Hypogean team, something like that. But it is what it is. It's a scrap team, we don't really have that 3rd team set again. We just kind of have like a good solid 1 and a good solid 2. Now, would I run these teams for defense? Mini TNT with the Bonnie over Lily May, but then we lose out on that talent tile and those faction stat bonuses. So, we'll see when push comes to stuff. We'll probably have our heavy celestial Hypogean team. We'll have our Mauler isolation team, Graveform isolation team again, and then we'll probably run something else, right? So it looks like we'll be going heavy into the Hypogean celestial side of things once more. Which kind of makes their talent tile a little lackluster, bad. So we'll have to see there. But yeah, I think that's it. I mean, we have a new battle drill coming. It's very similar to the spider battle drill, except it's not as closed off, which is very nice, right? You can kind of like just see that here. And yeah. That's all the big topics I want to cover. There's other small stuff coming here and there, like they added a gotcha mechanic to the cosmetics. You have this, and then you have like its extra currency that you get right here from it that you can use to buy additional things like the Tassie skin. I'm not too thrilled about this. I would have just straight up bought this off the store because I love Tassie. She's one of my favorite heroes. I like this skin, but probably won't be getting it anytime in the near future. Velvet Store's back. Same thing as always. I mean, there's not really like too many new features at this time, other than just like I said, new talent systems, new charms, acquisition system, new bosses in the Dream Realm, and yeah, that's about it. I will catch you guys in the next one. I'll put out more focused guides again when we have more things like official boss comps for Pre-Endless. We'll probably be putting out a ton of those early in the season, especially for Pre-Endless, with just how quick the meta shift there. It like can shift in within a week from mode to mode. And that's it for this one. I will catch you next time. Bye!